Now concerning what did they say whenever causes to ferment or flavors or which renders meduma, the ruling is stringent. Stringent? Oh, in the case of like kinds, stringent and leniently. If there are different kinds, how so? If leaven of wheat fell into a dough of wheat and it suffices to leaven it, then whether it is outweighed by 100 to 1 or is not outweighed by 100 to 1, it's forbidden. If it is not outweighed by 100 to 1, then whether it suffices to cause fermentation or it does not suffice to cause fermentation, it is forbidden. Stringently and leniently, if they are of different kinds. How so? If, for instance, crushed beans have been cooked with lentils and they impart a flavor, whether they are weighed by 100 to 1 or they are not outweighed by 100 to 1, it's forbidden. If they do not impart a flavor, whether they are outweighed by 100 to 1 or they are not outweighed by 100 to 1, it's permitted. If I'm sorry, if leaven of chulin fell into dough and it suffices to leaven, and then leaven of truma fell in, the leaven akili acharim, and it suffices to leaven, it's forbidden. Okay.
Okay. Seor shel chulin shenafal lesoch isa v'chimtza. Okay, so now in the previous case, all that happened was that the starter fell into the dough, but it didn't yet leaven it.
Right.
In this particular case, um, they the dough was already mixed in. The starter was already mixed into the dough. They left it overnight. It's risen. It's a beautiful dough, and now comes the problem. Achar kach nafar seor shel truma. And now some truma starter fell in and got mixed in as well. So it's already risen, and it's a small amount. It was less than 1 in 100 even, but it's a strong starter. I mean, look, just from my personal experience, starter, I add 300 grams of starter for every kilogram of flour.
Sounds
So
like a lot.
it's a lot. That's just my recipe. Maybe they had better starters in those days, but I don't know how you're going to get a starter in there that's less than 100 to 1 and is still going to be good enough to make the whole thing ferment. Okay, but that said, let's just take this as at face value. Um, so afterwards, the starter of truma fell in. Also, Oshel kilaya kerim, or some other kind of isur kilaya kerim, and now this is now less than 1 in 200, of course. Yesh ba kedei lechametz, but it's enough that had it not already been fermented, this would have been enough. So says the Tanna Kama Asur.
Mhm.
This also it's a significant amount, and it doesn't matter the fact that it's already been fermented because this bit of starter is intrinsically significant. Even it's not about the effect that it has; it's just about what is its significance, and this cannot be battle. Rabbi Shimon Matir. So Rabbi Shimon says, no, this is not having any effect. And if it's going in now, it's basically a tamlif gum. It's a negative taste now that you're
Right.
putting this sour stuff into this. It's already done its rising. So therefore his matter is on the basis of tamlif gum. Okay. Tavlin. Shnaim ushlosha shemos mimin echad. So now what happens if you've got spices? So again, spices we said before are a law unto themselves um, because they've got a strong taste. So we don't look at the 100 or 200 at this point. We just
Right.
say, can you taste it? Okay. But what happens if you've got two or three different spices of one shem isur? Okay. Or three different shemos of Isur. Um, it doesn't. So let's say you've got chili peppers and you've got onions and you've got and I don't know, pepper.
Right.
Right? So all of those give a lot of flavor,
Right.
and but nonetheless, but each one by itself is not enough to be also. You wouldn't have tasted it by itself. Um, but and one of them is Kilaya Kerim, and one of them is Orlah, and one of them is Truma. Yeah, it's just say. Okay.
Right.
Asur Mitzdarfin says the Tanakama, if they join together, um, in order to make something else. So even if you wouldn't have tasted the one by itself, but now the two together you would taste, they join. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He says, Shnai mushlosha shemos mimin echad. Or shnei minim mishem echad. Einan mitzarfim. It says he said if you've got if you've got different species of this with the same kind of isur, or even two of the same species, but one is kilai karim and one is orla,
Right.
they don't join. Okay, but the halacha does not follow Rabbi Shimon. Mishnah Yud Aleph. Seor shel chulin v'shel truma. So you've got now starter, a bit of starter from chulin and a bit of starter of truma. Shenaflu l'tzoch isan. They both fell into the dough. Lo bazeh kedei lechametz, v'lo bazeh kedei lechametz. Each one independently would not have been enough to ferment the overall dough. Nitz tarfu v'chimtzu. However, because they joined together, the dough now fermented. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, achar acharon aniba, says I'm going to give the entire shame to the judgment on whichever one fell in last. Why? Because the one that fell in first did nothing. The one that fell in second is the one that did the work. So therefore, if the truma fell in last, then this is meduma. And if it was chulin that fell in last, it's mutar as long as you can you got to take out uh, a bit from the as much. But basically, the way that you take out 1 in 100 from truma and give it to the coin as if it's truma. So you have to do the
Same
same
thing.
as much of the dough as there was started that fell in, and give that to the coin, and I'm happy with it. וחכמים אומרים, בין שנפל איסור בתחילה, בין בסוף, doesn't matter which one fell in first or last. לעולם אינו אוסר עד שיהיה בו כדי לחמץ. It's only, we look only at the fact of was it a significant piece or not. If it wasn't enough to be mechametz without the other one, it's insignificant and it's batal.
But the halakha follows the kacham. So,
Yep. Yep,
okay.
yep. Okay. Okay, back to Chava Daled Hey.
Okay. Dalit hey. If there were two cobs and challah were taken from each separately, and he afterwards joined them into one piece of dough, Rebbe Kiva exempts, but the Kakaman declare it liable. It's a stringency turned into a leniency. One may not take the challah quantity from dough from which challah had not even been separated to make it into a state of cleanliness in order to go on separating from challah of the mai until it rots. Or challah of the mai may be taken from the clean for the unclean, and from that which is not mere. If Jews were arisen of non-Jews in Syria, Reb Eliezer declares the produce liable to Maasros and to the laws of the seventh year, but Rabbi Gamliel exempts. Rabbi Gamliel says 2 challah in Syria, but Reb Eliezer says 1 challah. They adopted the lenient ruling of Rabbi Gamliel and the lenient ruling of Rabbi Eliezer. They retracted and following the ruling of Rabbi Gamliel in respect to both. Okay.
All right.
It's,
Mastros. End of Mastros. Hey Zion.
okay. Ant holes, which stayed a whole night near a pile which was liable, are liable since it is evident they are dragged away the whole night from produce whose work has been completed. Balbeche, garlic, rilka, onions, Sicilian beans, and Egyptian lentils. Ramea says also kolakasa. Rossi says also wild lentils are exempt from Maasros and may be brought from anyone in the seventh year. The higher seed pods of the arum, the seeds of leeks, the seeds of onions, the seeds of turnips and radishes, and other seeds of garden produce which do not serve as food are exempt from Maasros and may be brought from anyone in the seventh year. And though they were grown from Truma stock, they may be eaten.
Hadron Allah.
Right.
Maseches Mastros.
And we are on
Masri.
I am. Okay. If one plants his vineyard 16 cubits apart, he may bring seeds there. Rabbi Yehuda said it happened in Simon that a man planted his vineyard in 16 cubits apart and turned the tips of the branches of 2 rows to one side and sowed the plowed ground. And the following year he turned the tips of the branches to the other side and sowed the fallow ground. And the master came before
Hold
the
on, hold on,
same.
hold on. Wait, where are you?
I don't know, I'm in the right place. I'm in Daled
Ah,
Tes.
you're in Kilayim. Okay, we want to do one Mishnah from Masasheni first.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. All right, go back. Yeah. Shani. Why am I missing it? Here we are. Okay. First Mishnah. Go. Aleph Aleph. They establish a general rule regarding maestros. Whatever is food and is guarded and grows from the soil
Yes,
is liable for.
you're in Masros, not in Maaseh Sheni.
Oh, I'm a maestros.
Yeah, you want to be
Which
in Maaseh Sheni. We're in Maseches Maaseh Sheni now.
I took out the wrong thing again. Oh,
No, no,
man.
no. We just finished Masros.
Right, I know. Oh, Meister Shan. Okay, I got. Get my head on straight here. Okay, here we are. Sorry. Okay. Aleph Aleph. Meister Shani may not be sold or pledged or bartered, nor may it be used as a weight. And one should not say to his fellow in Yerushalayim, "Here is wine, give me oil." Also with any other produce, but they may give it to one another as a free gift. Okay, that's it.
Hey. Right.
Oh,
Okay. Kilaim.
okay, I'm all confused here. Wait.
Mhm.
Okay, now we're oh, okay. If one plants his vineyard 16 cubits apart, he may bring seeds there. Rabbi Yehuda said it happened in Talmud that a man planted his vineyard 16 cubits apart and turned the tips of the branches of two rows to one side and sowed the plowed ground. And the following year he turned the tips of the branches to the other side and sowed the fallow ground. And the matter came before the Chachamim, and they permitted it. Reb Meir and Reb Shimon said if one plants his vineyard 8 cubits apart, it's also permitted. A vineyard that has been laid waste, if 10 vines can be harvested within one beit sod, and they are planted according to the law, it is called a poor vineyard. If a vineyard has been planted in an irregular layout, if there are two opposite three, it is a vineyard. But if not, it is not a vineyard. And Reb Meir says, since it has the appearance of vineyards, it is a vineyard. A vineyard which is planted less than 4 cubits apart, Reb Shimon says it is not a vineyard, but the Chachamim say it is a vineyard, and the middle ones are regarded as non-existent.
Okay.
Back on track here. Okay.
Yeah.
Para.
Check.
Para. Okay.
All right.
Para. Okay. Aleph Dalet. The communal katas offerings and the Orlah offerings, the individual katas offering, the Asham offering of a Nazir, and the Asham offering of a Tzorah are acceptable from day 30 and on, and even on day 30. But if he offered them on the eighth day, they are acceptable. The vowed offerings and donated offerings, the firstborn, the animal tithe, and the Pesach offering are eligible from day 8 and on, and even on the eighth day. Reb Eliezer says a pregnant Kata's cow is valid, but the sages have validated. Reb Eliezer says it may not be purchased from idol worshippers, but the Chachamim validated. And not only this, but regarding all sacrificial offerings, both communal and individual, all sacrificial offerings may be brought from within the land and from outside the land from the new crop and from the old, except for the omer and two loaves, which may come only from the new crop and from the land. A cow whose horns or hooves are black, one should cut them off. The eyeball and the teeth and the tongue do not invalidate the cow. A dwarf cow is valid. If it had a wart and one cut it off, Rabbi Yehuda validates the cow. Rabbi Shimon says any place that the wart was removed and did not give rise to red hair in its place, the cow is disqualified.
Okay. Just gonna pause a second.
Oh, I think is it something else?
Say
Okay.
the Kuchim.
All right. Say the coach. Okay. All right. Okay. Aleph base. Yosef ben Choni says sacrifices slaughtered for the Pesach designation or the Chatas designation are invalid. Shimon, the brother of Azariah, says if they were slaughtered for a designation higher than their own, they are valid. For a designation lower than their own, they are invalid. How so? Most holy offerings which are slaughtered for an offering of lesser holiness designation are invalid, and offerings of lesser holiness which you slaughtered for a most holy offering designation are valid. The Bechor and the Misa offerings which were slaughtered for the Shlomim designation are valid. The Shlomim offerings which he slaughtered for the Bechor of the Misa designation are invalid. A Pesach offering which was slaughtered on the morning of the 14th of Nisan for a designation other than its own, Rabbi Yeshua validates it as if it had been slaughtered on the 13th. But Ben Metzera invalidates it as it had been slaughtered in the afternoon. Said Reb Shimon ben Azai, I have received a tradition from the 72 sages on the day they appointed Reb Elazar ben Azariah to the yeshiva, that all sacrifices that are eaten, which are slaughtered for a designation other than their own, are valid, but they are not credited to the owner's fulfillment of his obligation except for the Pesach and Chatos offerings. And Azai added only the Ola offering, and the Chabad did not concur with him. If one slaughtered a Pesach offering and a Katas offering for its designation other than their own, or he received their blood or conveyed it or threw it for a designation other than their own, or for the designation for and for their designation or for a designation other than their own, or for a designation other than their own as well as for their own designation, they are invalid. What is an example of for their own designation, for a designation other than their own? For a Pesach designation, a Shlomin designation. What is example of a designation other than their own as well for their own designation? For a Shlomin designation and for a Pesach designation. For a sacrifice can be invalidated during any of the four dings: during slaughter, reception of the blood, conveying to the altar, or throwing upon the altar. Reb Shimon validates in the case of conveying. Reb Shimon says to say it is impossible to make an offering without slaughtering, receiving, or throwing the blood, but it is possible without conveying it because one can slaughter the offering at the side of the altar and throw the blood there. But Eliezer says if one walks where he must walk, the intent invalidates, but if one walks where he did not walk, the intent does not invalidate.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
And
Two.
Ksubos.
Hey, Aleph. Although they said a virgin collects 200 zuz and a widow collects 100, if he wishes to add even 10,000 zuz, he may add. If she became widowed or divorced either through Erison or Nusin, then she collects all. But Elazar ben Zariah says after Nisan, she collects all. After Erison, the virgin collects 200 zuz and a widow 100 because he wrote it enough for only the condition of marrying her. Rabbi Yehuda says if he wishes, he may write for a virgin a contract of 200 zuz, and she writes, I have received from you 100, and for a widow 100, and she writes, I have received from you 50 zuz. The Meir says anyone who undertakes to give a virgin less than 200 or a widow less than 100, the intimacy is an illicit intimacy. A virgin is given 12 months from the time her husband has asked her to provide herself, and just as a woman is given, so is a man given to improve himself. A widow is given 30 days. If the time arrived and they were not married, they eat of his food and they may eat of truma. Reb Tarfon says she is given all of it from truma, and Reb Akiva says half ordinary food and half truma. A Yafam does not confer upon her sister-in-law the right to eat of truma if she had spent 6 months before her husband and 6 months before the Yavam, and even all of them before her husband, less one day than she spent before the Yavam, and all of them before the Yavam, less one day that she had spent before her husband. She may not eat of truma. This is the original ruling. The court that came after them said a woman may not eat of truma until she enters the chuppah.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Good luck.